Welcome to this presentation. In this presentation we will be going through on SQL syntax on single tables, so that when we go further into multiple tables we will not have to be worried about the SQL syntax. So for this session we will be using MySQL for learning the SQLs, and we will be using PHP MyAdmin. So if you have any comments, suggestions, or if you want to report any errors on this presentation, please send an email to computingbasics001@gmail.com. If you see the picture, we have server, and on the server we have one or more databases, and the database objects reside on the in a database. A database can contain table, views, or indexes, and other database objects. So a table contains rows and columns. We will be seeing the definition of rows and columns in the presentation. So examples of databases are DB2, MySQL, MS Access, OpenOffice Base, and Oracle. So there are SQL standards that are laid out. So irrespective of which database that you are using, you will be more or less you will be writing in SQL. So SQL will be common, and the syntax in different databases will almost be the same except minor changes. So most databases will be following the SQL standards. Some definitions: a table is contains information about an entity, and a table contains rows. A table has columns. Columns are more like attributes. If you take an example of a table, a person is a table. A person or an employee table, or student table, or project table, or any entity that has attributes can be a table. So rows are instances of the entities. Example: student 1 information is existing on one row, student 2's information exists on second row, and student 3's information exists on third row, and so on. A column is the attribute. Example: the ID is a column. The person ID is a column. In case of a person table, person ID is a column, and the person name is a column. Person address is a column. Phone number is a column. So those are all examples of columns. And data types. Each column will be a data type. If you look at an example of an ID, it will be numeric, but in some cases it can be a character, because if you want to write the ID as like 1 2 3 4 5 and so on, it will be numeric. But if you want to write it as ID 001 or ID 002 and so on, then you have to define it as a text. So there are different types of data types. The general data types are text, number, and date. Each of these have these are the general types. We additionally have data types for storing pictures and voice and so on. So under text there will be different types of text. A number, we have integers, decimals. Those are all data types that are number type of data types. And date, a data type will be, example, a joining date of an employee is a date. So we have the date data type. So whatever operations that you can do on a column is based on the data type. For example, if it is a number, if the data type is a number, for example, if it is a salary, you can find the average of the salary, or the minimum of the salary, or the maximum of the salary. And in case it is a text, let's take an example of a name. So you can get the uppercase of the name or the lowercase of the name you can get the length of the name, or you can get the substring of the name, and you can do such kind of operations. A substring is a part of the string, like example name. If you want the first 3 characters of the name or the first 5. In case of a data type, you can have different operations, like if let's say an example is joining date of an employee. So you can find the year of joining, or you can find the month of joining, you can find the day of joining. So the purpose of giving these examples is that you cannot use the date functions on, you cannot use the year, month and day functions or facilities on text or numbers. Similarly, you cannot find the average, minimum or maximum on text. So so some of the functions or some of the facilities that you do are based on the data types. So some random definitions. We have, as we have already seen, we have database objects. Database objects are like tables. Table is a database object. Views, indexes, triggers, stored procedures, and so on. SQL can be generally divided into 3. Is usually divided into 3: DDL, DML, and DCL. So DDL is, so in order to store data, first you want to build the infrastructure so that you can store data in an organized way. So those statements relating to building the infrastructure are called DDL, which is data definition language. So you can create tables, you can alter tables, or you can drop tables. You can create, alter, or drop database objects. Like for example of a DDL statement will be a create a table employee. Create table employee, and you will mention the columns, and you will mention the column. You will say ID, numeric, name, text, salary, numeric, and so on. So if you want to change the length of the name from 10 to 25, then you will use an alter. Or if you want to drop if you have made a big mistake, or if you want to drop it altogether, the drop statement will also be a data definition language statement, which is DDL statement. Once you have built the infrastructure, you have to use that infrastructure to store your data, to put your data into the tables, and then you may want to retrieve the data, or you may want to update any wrong data, or you want to make updates or changes, or you want to remove the data. So any such manipulating the data comes under data manipulation language. And then on tables, you can say some users will have the privilege, and some will be able to view, but they will not be able to do any they will not be able to do any action queries. An action query or insert, update, or delete. So if you see in the previous DML example, we have 4: select, insert, update, and delete. So select is simply retrieval. You are retrieving the data, so there is no change happening in the database. But if you either insert data or update existing data or delete data, then a change is happening inside. So such this insert, update, delete are called action queries, and select is just a retrieval. So if you want to grant privileges for doing insert, updates, and deletes to only certain people with the specific role of updating, then you don't want everyone to be updating the same the data, because you don't want the data to be wrong. So they will have only the privilege to view the data, but they will not have the privilege to do any action query on the data. So such kind of things are done. Such kind of statements are called DCL, which is data control language. So in our example, we are going to create two single tables which are not related to each other. One is employee, and one is employee ID. So the first employee we have already seen, and that has 5 columns, that is ID, name, location, department number and salary. The second table, employee 2, has the exact same information, except instead of salary we are splitting the salary column into 2 columns, that is basic salary and allowances. So when we add up the two, we can get the total salary.